Beneath the burning sun of North Africa lies a land where time itself seems to sleep. A place where the desert holds secrets older than memory, and the great river, the Nile, has been both the lifeblood and the witness of civilization for over 5,000 years. This is Egypt, the cradle of kings, gods, and stories that shaped the world. The birth of a civilization. Before there were empires, before there were borders, there was the Nile. Each year, its waters would rise, flood the lands, and leave behind rich soil. From this natural rhythm, life began. Along its banks, small communities learned to plant, harvest, and build. Over centuries, these villages grew into organized kingdoms, and eventually, one of the most extraordinary civilizations in human history. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under a single ruler marked the dawn of a new era. A powerful monarch known to history as King Menes would become the first pharaoh, the living god upon the earth. Under his reign, Egypt became one nation, guided by order, faith, and the eternal river. The early Egyptians believed their pharaohs were divine, chosen by the gods to rule the living and ensure balance between heaven and earth. To honor these kings, they built structures that defied logic, monuments that would outlive their builders, the pyramids. The Age of the Pyramids. The ancient city of Memphis became Egypt's first capital, and from there arose an age of innovation, architecture, and spiritual devotion. The pyramids of Giza, standing tall against time, were not mere tombs, they were stairways to eternity. Constructed with precision that still baffles modern engineers, they were meant to guide the souls of kings toward the afterlife. At their base, workers, artists, and architects worked under the scorching sun, not as slaves, as often imagined, but as laborers paid with food, shelter, and honor. Each stone placed upon another was an act of faith, a message to the gods. For nearly 1,000 years, Egypt flourished, its power extending along the Nile and into the deserts beyond. Yet even the strongest dynasties fade, and the light of the old kingdoms dimmed, giving way to new rulers and new visions. The rebirth of the Middle Kingdom. After centuries of unrest, Egypt found unity once again. A new generation of pharaohs rose from Thebes, determined to restore harmony and prosperity. This was an age of art, poetry, and reform. Temples were expanded, and Egypt's borders were strengthened. The kings of this era ruled not just as divine beings, but as shepherds of their people. They spoke of justice, compassion, and order, values that became central to Egyptian identity. The Middle Kingdom left behind not only monuments of stone, but stories of the human heart, literature carved in hieroglyphs, prayers to the gods, and wisdom that echoed through the ages. But beyond the deserts, new threats stirred. Foreign tribes and ambitious invaders sought Egypt's wealth, and though the Nile gave life, it could not protect from war. The empire of the new kingdom. From turmoil rose greatness once again. Egypt entered what many call its golden age. Mighty pharaohs like Thutmose III, Hatshepsut, and Ramses II led vast armies across deserts and seas, expanding the Egyptian empire to its furthest reaches. Queen Hatshepsut, one of the most remarkable figures in world history, defied tradition by ruling as pharaoh, dressing as a man, wearing the royal beard, and commanding with intelligence and grace. Under her reign, Egypt traded with distant lands like Punt, bringing back riches, incense, and exotic animals. Later came Akhenaten, the heretic king who challenged Egypt's ancient faith by declaring the worship of one god, the Aten, the sun disk. His radical vision was both revolutionary and divisive. After his death, Egypt restored its traditional gods, and his memory was almost erased. Then came the boy king, Tutankhamun, who, though he died young, would achieve immortality when his tomb was discovered in 1922, untouched and filled with treasures beyond imagination. The new kingdom was Egypt at its zenith, rich, powerful, and glorious. Temples rose at Karnak and Luxor, filled with prayers to gods like Amun, Ra, and Osiris. The pharaohs saw themselves as guardians of cosmic order, balancing the chaos of the world. But as centuries passed, the empire grew weary. Wars, corruption, and foreign invasions eroded Egypt's strength, and the great dynasties fell to new powers. The invasions and decline. Egypt's long history was marked by cycles of rise and fall. The Assyrians came from the east, then the Persians, each leaving their mark. Egypt's independence faded, but its spirit endured. Even under foreign rule, its culture, language, and traditions continued to thrive. Then, in 332 BCE, a new conqueror arrived, Alexander the Great. He entered Egypt not as a destroyer, but as a liberator, welcomed by the people who saw in him a new pharaoh. Alexander founded a city on the Mediterranean, Alexandria, destined to become a beacon of learning and civilization. The age of Greek and Roman Egypt. Under the Ptolemies, descendants of Alexander's general, Egypt entered a new era. Greek and Egyptian cultures intertwined. Temples to the ancient gods still rose beside Greek theaters and libraries. The greatest of all was Cleopatra VII, Egypt's last pharaoh. Intelligent, strategic, and fiercely proud, Cleopatra sought to preserve her nation's independence through diplomacy and alliances. Her love affairs with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony became the stuff of legend, but her vision was political, to keep Egypt free from Roman domination. Her defeat at the hands of Octavian, later known as Augustus, marked the end of Egyptian sovereignty. Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, and the age of pharaohs was over. Yet, even as Rome ruled, Egyptian traditions persisted. The gods, the temples, and the eternal Nile continued their rhythm. The coming of Islam. Centuries passed, and with the dawn of the 7th century, a new faith swept across the deserts: Islam. In 641 CE, the armies of Amr ibn al-As entered Egypt. The old temples had long fallen silent, but now a new sound filled the air: the call to prayer. Under Islamic rule, Egypt thrived once again. The city of Cairo was founded Al-Qahira, the victorious. Scholars, scientists, and philosophers gathered under the minarets of Al-Azhar, one of the world's oldest universities. Egypt became a center of knowledge, art, and faith. From the Fatimids to Saladin and the Mamluks, each dynasty left behind a legacy of architecture, learning, and resilience. Cairo became known as the Jewel of the East, a crossroads between Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. The Ottoman era and the modern struggle. In 1517, the Ottoman Empire absorbed Egypt into its vast dominion. Though ruled from Istanbul, Egypt remained unique, its people proud, its culture enduring. The centuries that followed saw both decline and transformation. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Egypt, fascinated by its history and strategic position. The French expedition brought with it not just soldiers, but scientists and artists who documented Egypt's wonders, sparking Europe's obsession with Egyptology. Out of this upheaval rose a new leader, Muhammad Ali Pasha. A visionary and reformer, he modernized Egypt's army, industry, and education, laying the foundation for the modern Egyptian state. His descendants would rule for more than a century, guiding Egypt through times of progress and foreign influence. But another empire had its eyes on the land: Britain. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 made Egypt the heart of global trade. In 1882, the British occupied the country, effectively controlling it for 70 years. Egypt became a pawn in the game of world powers, its independence a distant dream. The road to independence. The dawn of the 20th century brought with it a new spirit: nationalism. Egyptians, inspired by their ancient heritage and their desire for freedom, rose against colonial control. In 1952, a group of young officers, led by Gamal Abdel Nasser and Mohammed Naguib, overthrew the monarchy and declared the birth of the Republic of Egypt. It was the beginning of a new chapter. Nasser became a symbol of Arab unity and independence. His decision to nationalize the Suez Canal in 1956 stood as a bold statement to the world. Egypt would no longer bow to foreign powers. Under his leadership, Egypt modernized rapidly, though challenges, wars, politics, and economic struggles persisted. From NASSER to the present. Following Nasser's death, Anwar Sadat steered Egypt toward peace. His visit to Israel and the signing of the Camp David Accords in 1978 changed Middle Eastern politics forever. Sadat's assassination in 1980 shocked the world, paving the way for Hosni Mubarak's long rule, an era of both stability and stagnation. Then came the year 2011. The world watched as the Egyptian people filled Tahrir Square, their voices rising for change, freedom, and dignity. The revolution ended decades of autocracy, ushering in a turbulent period of transition and hope. Today, under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Egypt stands at a crossroads, balancing between its glorious past and the demands of a complex future. Massive projects like the new Suez Canal and the new administrative capital aim to redefine the nation's identity in the 21st century. The eternal legacy. From the sands of Giza to the minarets of Cairo, from the whispers of the Pharaohs to the calls to prayer, Egypt remains eternal. Its story is not just one of kings and wars, but of humanity itself, of dreams, innovation, and the quest for immortality. The Nile still flows, as it did in the time of the ancients, patient, enduring, eternal. And as its waters move toward the sea, they carry with them the memory of every life, every empire, and every story ever written in the sands of Egypt.